You know, one of the good things about not getting an incredible number of viewers on your YouTube channel is you've got the freedom to say whatever you want, you know, on any topic. And I appreciate that people subscribe to me, and you know, if you know, it's an issue that I've got kind of uh, an eclectic field of endeavors. You know, I'm sorry. You know, it just is what it is. I might talk about unicycling. I might talk about building log steps. I might talk about violins and mandolins. I might talk about old motorcycles. But you know what? I'll label them, and if you choose not to watch them, don't watch them. But I get a lot of satisfaction in that if I do something on model airplanes or motorcycles or even trying to prove that the earth isn't flat. You know, I wind up getting all these different people into my sphere of YouTube, and it's not a bubble. You know, you could look at it one of two ways. You could say, I'm going for views, I want to be monetized, I want to be a YouTube star. And just collect all these people from around the universe watching my channel. Or you could just say, you know, I enjoy just yapping. You know, it's JR's Forest. It's not JR's motorcycles or JR's violins or JR's unicycles. It's just JR's Forest. I'm just going to talk about whatever I feel like, and you know, it is what it is. Oh, man. I was sitting after work. I started at, long days, like 8:30, and I finished up almost at 10. It's like owning a business, you know, being the manager of a public facility, is that you put the hours in. You know, so I get home, my body's hurting because I'll tell you, I finished doing that shredded bark. That's a lot of work, and then going on to other things and then building those log steps. And trust me, when you're draw knifing and sweeping, and I use a Husqvarna 288. It's a big chainsaw, 88 cc's, to make those notches. You know, the pain and the aches accumulate on an old body, along with years of abuse. And man, you know, it just long days. So I sat home on my couch, and I put the video camera up there, and opened a bottle of stout, and I was kind of joking around, you know. I'm gonna have a video, and I'm gonna enjoy a Bud Light, and I poured into a glass, and it's like so black you can't see the light through it. It's like, nah, this is real stuff. And then I went on to a lot of political topics, and it's like, you know, if you watch my other channel, John J. Riggs Archery, you understand my political slang. I'm just a guy that believes in law and order and maintaining a civilized society, and raising your kids so they're responsible. No participation trophies, no just buying them stuff, you know. And the ultimate goal of not having them be broken people living in your basement forever. You know, and especially these blue cities that we're all for, you know, what's happening at the border, but not as soon as it affects them. You know, the irony. But anyway, I'm getting ready for the day, but I just thought you remember this, I did like the mystery tank. Well, I use other YouTube channels and the internet as a resource. And, you know, Kaplan Cycles is an interesting YouTube channel. They specialize in vintage motorcycles, and right there on their website it says we are too busy to answer questions regarding restorations, or, you know, just having millions of people ask them all these pesky questions. It's like, figure it out for yourself. But I phrased it. Hi, I know you're extremely busy, and I appreciate your taking the time to read this email. Send them a picture of that. I just want to know if you're familiar with what model and what year this would have come off of, a purple tank with those graphics. And you know, the next day, I believe his name is Keith Kaplan, got back to me and said it's a custom job. So this is not stock. Although You know, it's cool. So I plan on keeping it the way it is. But it gave me some freedom. Last night I was bad. I was very bad. It was a total of $200. You know, but I found this is a 1974 TS 125 engine. Can do all sorts of things. Port it, put an expansion chamber, create my vision of a perfect enduro bike. True enduro bike, you know, not a modern street scrambler. Let's get into that after this. But I found a frame and swing arm in pretty good shape for $100 and $50 in shipping. 74 TS 125 frame. And now, because this tank isn't stock, and it's going to be kind of the Johnny Cash Cadillac of TS 125s, I've got complete freedom to repaint that frame in silver. And plus, if I don't cut any brackets off of it, whatever, you can always restore it to its original black. It's going to be silver. It's going to be just like an old Penton or an old KTM or an old Husqvarna. That's enduro and motocross frame color. And the front motor mounts, because the front motor mounts are a plate on either side, boom, bolt to the frame, and then there's a engine mounting bolt that goes through there. And the triple trees. And because it's not stock, and this is not necessarily an unrecoverable modification, I'm going to get, you know, a better front end, better forks, better fork legs than came on stock, and I'm going to get better rear shocks. You know, not tall. It's not going to have 13 inches of suspension. It's probably going to have about 5 or 6, which is, you know, a good length for a vintage bike. I'm going to get hubs, you know, provided that the diameter on the fork legs for the axle is this. If it's the same as a TS 125, I'm just going to get a hub, and I will lace good vintage alloy rims to it, because the alloy is lighter than the chrome steel, you know, and it all adds up, less unsprung weight. And probably the stock exhaust, because the TS 125 exhaust is cool, that upswept black pipe, the early ones with the chrome exhaust shield, the early chrome exhaust shield, not the uglier newer one. So this is going to be my dream motocross bike. I'm still spry. I mean, the old body hurts, but yeah, still able to dirt bike around, maybe get into vintage motocross. That'd be awesome. I haven't motocrossed in a long time. Gosh, I don't even want to think of how many years it is. But, you know, it's not about the winning. It's just about the racing. I watched a couple videos last night. The one that irks me to no end. It irks the crap out of me. Is taking these old vintage bikes and cutting them and modifying them and turning in cafe racers. As I said earlier, the history, don't monkey with them, restore them. Except in the case of, you know, a Frankenstein bike that you're buying a piece at a time on eBay. But that still means you don't cut anything off the frame, even if you're not using that bracket, even if you're not using like a battery or turn signals or whatever. You know, don't cut that frame. Frame is history. And then it goes on to the next bit of stuff I was watching, and that is the problem with retro bikes. All these manufacturers, BSA, I don't even know if it's still BSA or a Chinese company bought the name, you know, and the Triumphs and all these other things. The only real retro bike you can buy, well, there's some manufactured in India that I don't believe made it over to the U.S. But see, they're reinventing the wheel, which is a good thing because it puts that wheel back at the beginning. Is that those are truly retro bikes. You know, they have a carburetor, not fake carburetors like on the Triumphs. They don't have radiators. Radiators are ugly. If you've got a single or a inline twin, you don't need a radiator. Sure, it's gonna increase the ultimate lifespan, but you can always rebore the cylinder and put a new piston in it. You know, sure, it's going to increase efficiency, but whatever. Catalytic converters don't belong on motorcycles. Anti-lock brakes, but you know, they're taking these retro bikes and they're turning them into modern bikes and then just saying they're retro. They like the new Honda 350 Scrambler. That's ugly. That is nowhere near the original, you know. My point is, you know, buy what you want. But I'm saying if you want a retro bike that doesn't have all the computerized garbage on it, fake carburetors, a radiator, blah, 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 blah. You know, buy a, oh, gosh, I hate being old and blanking. Buy a Royal Enfield. Or buy an old bike. You know, we don't need all this computerized garbage on these things. The soul of a motorcycle is simplicity. You know, what is, this one guy was, what was he saying? Oh, the truths, 10 truths that motorcycle manufacturers and dealers, I don't remember the exact name, won't tell you. The first is the interval of changing the oil. They're recommending an ungodly length between changing the oil, and the oil is the blood, the lifeblood of a motorcycle, you know, and how hard is it to change the oil in a motorcycle, an oil filter? And it's not expensive. 2 quarts maybe a little more than 2 quarts. You could do it in your driveway easily. You know, what else were they saying? The truth, don't wash your motorcycle. Well, I actually washed my motorcycle last night. Left it out and it rained. They're saying the less you wash it, the better. And especially using pressure washers and high pressure water, getting all that water into the seals. What are some other things? I'm going to try to remember one more thing. Oh, in simplicity. You know, and it gets back to all that garbage. You know, if you want an adventure bike, and you want something that's just simple and reliable and will run forever, get a 1990 Honda XR600R or a KLR 650. You know, an old one. A single cylinder, air-cooled, simple as a damn rock, and it'll just last forever. You know, I don't feel bad that motorcycles and cars, AM radio, I'm going to plant that, AM radio in my mind, get as complicated and stupid and ugly and fake carbureted as you want. There's still so many old bikes. I've got now 3.5, including this one. You know, they're out there. Polish up your mechanical skills. Now, I am not good with electronics, but I made a new wiring harness for my SR500 because I cut a bunch of stuff off. It doesn't have a speedo, it doesn't have a tach, it doesn't have turn signals, doesn't have a battery. So I made a wiring harness. I forced myself to learn this stuff. If I want to ride, I need to learn how to maintain and work on my motorcycles. AM radio. Protecting democracy. Isn't that funny that they're going to be eliminating AM radio from cars, and not just electric cars? They're saying that EVs, there's interference with the motors and stuff like that, electric motors, and you can't get clear AM radio. But they're also going to extend that, many manufacturers, to their gas-powered vehicles. Isn't it a coinkydink that, like, AM radio is the haven for conservative talk shows? Don Bongino, Glenn Beck, Mark Levine. You know, so get rid of the First Amendment, get rid of free speech, eliminate the voice of your opponent a step at a time. This is political. Defenders of democracy. Not having primaries in the Democratic presidential election and not having any debates. If you're on the other side, from me, I'm a libertarian. I don't claim the Republican Party because they do stupid stuff as much as the Democrats. In fact, you know, we could have swept the midterms, we as conservatives, libertarian, not Republican, Could have swept the midterms. But you know, we snatched failure out of the mouth of victory. And they're going to do it again in this presidential election. With some of the bills, I'm not going to get into specific, that are up. You're losing voters. You're not seeing the big picture. You're going off on these stupid tangents, you know? And so both sides are ridiculous. Both sides are ridiculous. See, I can get away with that because I'm not favoring one side or the other here. Both sides are stupid. Anyway, that is all. Have a good one. I've got another full day's worth of work, followed by another one for 200 more days. It's the life of somebody that works. Have a good one. Appreciate the viewership.